The Bank of Canada is warning that weak labor productivity and low levels of business investment could make it harder to fight inflation. In 2022, Canadian productivity fell to just 71%. When you compare that to the United States and excluding Italy, we're behind all of our G7 peers. So what exactly do they mean by productivity and how do we improve it? For more on what needs to happen, we're joined this morning by Ian Lee, professor of Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Welcome back, Ian.
My pleasure, Anne-Marie.
So firstly, what is productivity in this context? Is the Bank of Canada telling people they need to work harder?
The stereotype is that it's about, beating up on the worker and making them work harder. And I've heard this, believe me, for 40, 50 years. And it's a false urban legend or stereotype. Productivity, as anyone who knows who studied this, every economist knows this, every central banker knows this, finance public servant, the only thing that can increase our standard of living in the medium and long term are increases in productivity. So productivity is output per worker. That does not mean exploiting the workers. How we've achieved phenomenal, unbelievable increases in the standard of living in the last 200 years since 1800, this has been documented by Professor McCloskey at the University of Chicago, has been extraordinary increases in technological innovation by companies doing research and development. We talk about innovation all the time. That's one of the major paths to increase in productivity. We don't build roads and buildings with shovels and pickaxes anymore. We use all kinds of modern labor-saving technology that expands our ability to build a road or build a high-rise building. And so R&D or innovation lies at the center along with competition for increasing our standard of living through increases in the output per worker over time.
So if I understand you correctly then, the Bank of Canada isn't saying workers work harder, they're saying companies invest smarter.
Exactly. And unfortunately, and the CD Howe, full shout out to them, they've been documenting this for several years. David Dodge, the former governor of the Bank of Canada, has been talking about this endlessly for 4 or 5 years. So has Don Drummond. The investment in our country per worker is declining. And again, let's remember, investment creates the jobs of tomorrow. Philip Cross, a former very senior statistician, came out to my class just before the pandemic. And he said, if you want to see where our country is going, he says, look at the collective aggregate investment today in factories, technologies, equipment, machinery, and that's going to tell you where your economy is going to be in 3 or 4 years, because there's a lag between the time you invest in make the investments and the time it shows up as productive output. So our investment is going down. That means our standard of living is going to continue to decline in real terms after inflation is removed.
Senior Deputy Governor Carolyn Rogers sort of outlined what this could and should look like and said that it was weak business investment, meager competition, so the monopolies that people will complain about in this country, and a failure to properly integrate skilled immigrants into our Canadian workforce. What effect does immigration have on levels of productivity?
Well, immigration is extremely important to our country. We are, as former late Prime Minister Mulroney famously said many times, we are a nation of immigrants from the very, very beginning, from the get-go. And so immigration has always played an important role. It's even more important today because, of course, we all know about the declining the birth rate and, of course, the boomers leaving the workforce. So we need more immigrants, but the key is highly skilled, trained immigrants rather than low-skilled or unskilled immigrants. The quality of the workforce, of the labor force, is a very important component of productivity. It's not just capital investment, it's not just innovation, but you still need skilled, highly skilled workers. And the investment per worker in our country in skills training and upskilling has been declining, and we're significantly below the United States on a per worker investment in training.
Yeah, I also thought it was interesting the word integrate that's used into the workforce, because we did change our immigration policies. You do have to come with either post-secondary or work equivalent experience, but people get here and maybe we don't integrate them into the careers that they already have experience in.
You're absolutely right. There are barriers, and they're well known. I've been very critical of it in the university. We have doctors in this country who have been trained abroad, and they can't practice as a doctor. because we put huge amounts of barriers to credentialize them, and it takes 2, 3, 4 years, which is absurd. I evaluate students that apply from abroad and evaluate their courses. Every university does this. I'm not unique. And it does not take 5 years to evaluate the education credentials, the degree, and the courses taken of an applicant. You can do it in a half an hour to an hour. And yet we have nurses in this country who have emigrated here, and they can't work because we are not accepting or acknowledging their education from abroad. These are barriers to integration, and these are people who could become much more productive in the Canadian economy if we reduced and eliminated those barriers.
We've highlighted the problems. We've said what's going to happen if it doesn't change, and let's hope that change is coming. Always great to speak to you, Ian. Thanks so much.
My pleasure, Anne-Marie. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.